Welcome to Leaving Crazy Town with Finn and Sarah. I'm Finn.
I'm Sarah. Welcome to the channel. I know we're
Yeah,
always talking over each
subscribe.
other.
Subscribe. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think.
Subscribe.
Subscribe. And Sarah's gonna share a story about communication and expectations and so forth. And why don't you take it away, Sarah?
All right, my friends. So a big part of codependency when you're codependent is you have a really hard time saying what you need and what you want. Like, okay, there should be fireworks going off right now
Boom,
because
boom, boom.
this is like a huge part of being a codependent is
Saying what you need and what you want.
right. Because it's very difficult because we worry because we're in fear, right? We worry about hurting someone's feelings or abandonment or some old crap getting activated. Okay. So, a couple of things that happen with communication is sometimes we don't even say it and we're wishing the other person will say it. Like, we'll say, "What restaurant do you want to go to?" Meanwhile, I'm wanting Italian, but I don't say I want Italian, but I'm like hoping they say Italian. I mean, that's how crazy it can get. We kind of hope the other person is going to read our mind or say what we want or whatever. So
Or
it's
we'll hint,
really
like, do
important.
you want Italian?
Yeah, exactly.
Does Italian sound good?
Does Italian sound good? Have you had, veal parmesan in a while? Yeah, exactly. So we are going to do a bunch of videos about communication, but being clear and the difficulty that can happen when we want to be clear. So I'm going to give the example. So over the holidays, my son's home from school. He's 21. He has a sweetheart. They were going to be here. We had Christmas Eve plans. My reality was for the previous month to Christmas Eve, I'm excited about the Christmas Eve plan and I'm thinking about how it's going to go. Now, I'm not necessarily communicating this. I'm just making up a huge story about how great it's going to be. And I should have known from like previous Christmas Eves with my son from when he was 2 onward that they never go the way I have it planned in my head. Hopefully, people can relate to this. So it's Christmas Eve day, and he and his sweetheart are going out around 2. And in my head, I had, okay, we're going to do dinner. I also had planned what I'm having in my head, which was pizza. And then I said, maybe we'll watch a video. Okay, we're going
You
to do stockings.
decorated.
I decorated, I put all this effort into it. And in my reality, like it was just going to be this magical time. So I say to them as they're leaving, I'm like, hey, you guys, you know, you want to do dinner, maybe a pizza? And they don't really respond. They kind of wander around there getting stuff ready. And they're like, okay, kind of like
Can I get
casually.
clarification? Is this on Christmas Eve?
This is at 2 o'clock on Christmas Eve
So
day.
you're just at 2 o'clock on Christmas Eve asking if I'm just,
Yes.
okay.
Yes, I planned it all in my head, but I hadn't really communicated it, which is the point of this video, because I
Exactly.
got myself into a lot of trouble. All right. So I say, are you guys going to be around? I mentioned pizza. Meanwhile, I don't eat pizza that much. So I'm like literally obsessing about pizza for hours after they leave. Okay. The other thing was the movie. So we love watching movies, and I had in my head we're going to watch a movie together because my son and I always watch movies, and this is going to be so bonding, and his girlfriend's going to be there, and it's going to be this magical time. And so, and in my son's brain, which I discovered later, all he had in his brain was stockings, 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 stockings. Because stockings, you notice I haven't mentioned the stockings, was what we had agreed on. Basically. Okay, I'm telling you this story and I'm realizing kind of how insane I am, but it's kind of a great example of how two people are in the same room, but in two totally different realities.
So
And
when you
that's,
say stalking, Sarah, you guys, the plan was that you talked about originally was you guys would exchange stockings on Christmas Eve.
yes, that
Okay.
we would open our stockings on Christmas Eve.
On
Yeah.
this communication video, I wasn't sure what you were saying, but no.
Yeah. Okay, I'm working on the clarity. So the communication we had exactly, we're going to do second. So long story short, because hopefully nobody's like turned the channel now, is I'm home, it's 5 o'clock, they've gone, and I start looking at the clock and I start thinking, oh, they'll be home any minute because we're going to order pizza, right? And then it gets to be 5:30, then it gets to be 6 o'clock, then it gets to be 6:30. And meanwhile, I'm like now getting a little edgy because now I'm like, not having pizza. And then I'm thinking, not doing a movie because I go to bed at freaking 8:30. So I'm like, all of a sudden I'm not angry, but kind of agitated because I know I got to take responsibility for myself. So I'm like, okay, I'll call. So this was the moment of the breakdown. I called and my son answers the phone. And I said, hey, bud, just checking in on you guys. What are you doing? And he says the following: we're having dinner with Robbie, which is his best friend. And I immediately feel crushed and want to fall on the floor and suck my thumb and start sobbing like a baby. But I don't at that moment. I pause, like we've discussed. We don't want to overreact. We don't want to take out our feelings. And by the way, guys, you remember in the book or in our videos how we talk about when there's an extreme reaction, never about the present moment. Never. Okay. Not that I'm not feeling disappointed and I can't say that, but I was having like an intense bodily response. Okay. So I think about, okay, we're in two realities. I'm crushed. And I just say, he realizes kind of like, oh, something's going on here. And he says, we'll be right home. Okay. Meanwhile, I'm at home. I go into my bedroom and I sit down on the floor and I start sobbing. Okay. Just sobbing. I'm like in pain, sobbing. And I'm thinking, where did all this go off track? Where did all this go wrong? Okay. And what I realized and what we processed later was I wasn't clear about my communication. Most of it was in my fantasy world in my head. And I know our audience can relate to this. Okay. So one is the clear communication. That's the key, which is scary, but is so important. Number two is my activation. What happened to me? And I give you guys this exercise. When you're having an intense reaction, think to yourself, what does this remind me of? And what came to me was when I was a couple of years sober, sitting in a restaurant in Harvard Square, and this guy and I had made plans for dinner, and I had a freaking wicked crush on this guy. I worked with him, so I would have to see him the next day, by the way. And I'm in the restaurant, and the clock is ticking. And he's not showing up. And I'm like 2 years sober. It's probably one of my first dating experience. Not that I hadn't had sex, by the way, but date. Okay, that's another episode. But yeah, okay. Date. So that evening was crushing because again, I had a crush on this guy. He doesn't show up. I feel devastated. So what we're going to do here is we're connecting those two events. My son and his girlfriend not showing up for the Christmas Eve activated my stuff about this previous date. So I could process that. I could work through it, have my feelings. And then when they got here, we processed kind of what had happened. And we were in two different worlds. And I had a lean cuisine.
Yeah. I just want to
But
point
it all
out,
worked out.
I want to
Yes.
point out something that actually isn't, it's not exactly the communication thing, but how,
Okay.
I don't know, anyone else listening, I want to just point out that Sarah took complete responsibility for her feelings and her actions. When she called her son, she didn't hold him responsible for what was going on for her. And a lot of times we want to lash out at the other people when, make them responsible for how we're feeling. And that's not what happened. She called to ask what's going on and, went and dealt with her stuff. Because
So
when
good.
we choose us, we have to be responsible. It's all about us, like our reaction, our response to things. And we can't hold other people responsible for what's going on for us. And it's hard to do, especially with children, I think.
Absolutely.
I don't have any, but what I have stepkids, but what I've
You have
watched
to absolutely.
is a lot of adults who want to make their kids responsible for what's going on for them.
Oh my God, that's going to be like so many later episodes because, as you know, Finn, that's an activating topic for me.
Yes.
Oh, all right, you guys. So
So
we
you're a
want you.
warrior, Sarah. Great
I
job.
made it through that. I didn't get crazy during that episode, that particular incident. But
Yeah.
so what we want you guys to think about is, are you clear in your communication? Do you get afraid when you need to communicate what you want because it may not happen? You know, what fears go on for you? And if you get activated, sit with yourself, try not to take it out on the other person or blame or whatever. I mean, you might, but try to focus on yourself. And what is an old incident that may have gotten activated? So it's something to think about.
Yes. So
Anything else,
clear
Doug?
communication. Yeah. I just want to wrap up. Like,
Yes.
I get what I saw myself doing, and I try to be pretty clear with a lot of things today, but I do remember experiencing this from other people as well as myself. When I find myself hinting around, making suggestions,
Yes.
offering an open question when I really know what I want.
Yes, we do
Just
that.
different things like that, or even if it's
Which
like an
is
activity.
manipulation.
Even if it's an
Really?
activity I don't want, I might try to discourage the other person by the weather or something like that. And I've noticed that these are behaviors that I do when I'm not
Yes.
communicating clearly what my needs are and what I want.
Yes. It's so good. It's so good. Geez, how about we go to this place? Would you like, yes, it's all
Close to
baloney.
you. Have you ever tried it? It's not.
I know. All right. So clear communication and put some examples in our chat. Tell us your wins, tell us your struggles, whatever you want. We're here to listen and to process this stuff and get out of crazy town.
We're leaving Crazy Town, people.
We're leaving crazy town. See ya.